Welcome to the Sonic Collective, a music podcast that explores a different album or musical concept each month, diving deep into its history, context, and impact on the music industry. Join our host, Alain Scott, and Darren Scott, that's way too many Scotts, as they share their thoughts, insights, and personal connections to the music, inviting you, the listener, to discover new perspectives and appreciation for some of the greatest albums and music of all time.
Hello, everybody in Sonic Collective land. This is Alan here for the Sonic Collective, and joining me is, as always, Scott Gregory, Scott Coates, and Darren Scott. There are a lot of Scotts here. If you have been listening to us for a little while, you know that we are continuing our series of exploration into one-hit wonders. And for the month of July, we reviewed the album So Blu by Blu Cantrell. And you may remember Blu Cantrell's single from 2001, Hit 'Em Up Style. As part of this exploration, we're going to try and figure out whether or not the song still holds up and whether or not Blu Cantrell deserved the label of one-hit wonder or if she deserved more out of her career. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I feel, but first I want to throw it over to my good friend Scott Gregory. Welcome back, Scott. Let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you. So overall, I think Blu's runs are strong, and she's got a really soulful voice. She only released 2 albums, though. This was the first one, which is weird because I saw a top 10 list of her best songs. I'm like, she's only got like 30 total. So like the top 10 is like a third of her whole discography. But a big criticism I saw of this album, and the second one, is that they were just trying to do airplay, club-friendly tracks and that, and I really got that vibe from this album. I really wasn't feeling any uniqueness to it, which is sad considering how strong her voice is, right? I feel like she could really stand out with some good lyrics and some good music behind her. Breathe featuring Sean Paul was the only other song that really did anything for her ever, and that was likely because of Sean Paul at that time, who absolutely blew up right around when she dropped that album. So good on her for landing him as a guest star. But it just felt very 2000s, which I'm not a big soul fan in general. So this is about the only time I would have ever heard it, right? But it's like got a big Lil Kim vibe to it. And I feel like if she was maybe just slightly older, she would have been one of those ladies, on the line singing Lady Marmalade in the video kind of thing, right? She fits right in with that crowd there. The album, it just didn't have any structure or real meaningful transitions that we look for, this really cohesive type message to it. And it just felt, for the most part, like a movement between, exercises in doing runs, with a couple of exceptions in some of the singles. Hit 'Em Up Style was obviously the one we're talking about here, the one hit on the album, wink, wink. I'm not really sure I like the message of this song. If he cheats on you, empty the bank accounts, sell all his stuff, and ruin his credit rating. Guys, if your girl was listening to Blu Cantrell in the early 2000s, keep a separate account. But it was definitely a hit. It ranked number 2 in the US, and it was just everywhere. Like, you could not get away from this song if you're listening to the radio. There were some standouts. Like, I like Till I'm Gone, the little reggae play on there, and that. Although I could still think of 3 or 4 other reggae kind of themed songs that I'd put ahead of it on a playlist. And I'll Find a Way was a standout for me. It was slow and jazzy. I really liked her voice on that track. There was this subdued piano and percussion behind her that really lets her shine through. Again, she has an amazing voice. And she didn't go crazy on the runs, which was really getting pretty tiring at that point in the album. I think that one was, like 9th or 10th on the album. But then you get into things like So Blu, or All You Had to Say, which is upbeat and poppy. But it's just, again, too many runs all the way down on this album. So yeah, generally, I could, take it or leave it a world. I could probably leave this one. It didn't impress me. It didn't even stand out among its contemporaries, let alone, in the grand history of soul music for me. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, Scott, I definitely share a lot of your sentiments. I'm joining you today from Kimberley, BC, where I'm staying at a condo that actually our co-podcast host here, Scott Coates, and another good friend of ours, Greg Wilson, owns. And the good people at Performance Waste. If you're in the Calgary, Alberta area and you need performance and waste services, well, we know the people to call. Anyway, no, good friend of mine. So it's beautiful here. So I was out hiking all day with my wife, and it's pretty hot. So yeah, it was a good day. But we're talking about Blu Cantrell. I got off topic there, but that's cool, man. That's what happens when you're in Kimberley. Yeah, so Tiffany Cobb is her name. She's, I won't reveal her age, but she's 29 plus for several other years. And has had a big career. I mean, she started out as a very strong backup vocalist. She was backing up Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, for quite a while. And so, I mean, has the chops. I think nobody on this show today will disagree that her voice is astounding. Definitely influenced from gospel, obviously, gospel soul, and very strong and amazing. The unfortunate thing is, I mean, she was post Whitney Houston, and Whitney kind of set a bar that maybe it was too high for anybody else for a while. But so that sound at the time was a little more, I guess, had been around a while, so it wasn't as popular. And so the rest of her album, besides some of the hips like swinging, hit 'em up style. Um, yeah, they just, they're more definitely gospel soul based, and her voice is amazing, but it's ultimately just kind of blends in with everything else at that time. So, though she could sing, she had amazing producers. She had known Usher, and Usher introduced her to Chris Tricky Stewart. And Tricky was a very, very famous producer. If you look him up, like he's done like everyone, like Beyonce, Britney Spears, like especially on the female side, he seems to be that producer. So he's produced some of the biggest hits. Rihanna's in there too, like in the last, 20, 30 years. So an amazing producer on her side, got introduced, and she had such a good talent. I think I agree with you though. I think she just strained to find her own sound. And the funny thing is, hit 'em up style is probably like a toy for her. And it's not really a big strain on the vocals. It's almost a little more funky vibe going, not quite rap, but just not so much, gospel type soul. And it's funny, and I actually found myself drawn to her songs where she wasn't singing in that soul way because it's different. And I think she was such a talented soul singer, gospel singer, that she probably always wanted to be that, and God bless her because she has that gift, and she should. But really, the songs that stood out were kind of the more a different style and something like that, and that's where music was going in these years too. So yeah, you're right. There's Breathe on the second album there. And then she had this other album, LA to LO. And it was like there's one song, what was it, Girl Please, that had like 20,000 plays. This is up to date on Spotify here. And the rest of the songs had like 4 or 5,000. And it was just like, wow, like what happened there? Like our podcast here is probably getting more listens than that. And like, man, Blu Cantrell had these massive hits. And then like the next album is like non-existent. Like so that I don't know why. Maybe again, maybe she just didn't change, and she went on to do some Broadway and acting and stuff, and has a great reputation and is an amazing singer and known for that. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling on here. Why not pass it off to Scott Coates over in Thailand there and get your perspective there, buddy?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And I'm glad to hear both of you say sort of what my feelings were. And somehow I had never heard of Blu Cantrell nor So Blu, nor had I ever heard Hit 'em Up Style. And right after Alan picked this, he and I had a quick back and forth, and he said, "Oh, you must have heard this song." And I was in Calgary working at Classic Jack's those summers, or that summer, and I'm sure I've never heard it because I listened to it twice in a row after Alan said, "You must have heard it." Somehow this completely eluded me. Never, ever, ever heard of her, heard of the album, heard the hit singles. So coming into it brand new. The first track, I immediately thought, wow, this person's voice is really strong and she doesn't need these other gentlemen talking and rapping over the front of the song, which was super popular at that time. And I just thought, wow, these guys are kind of ruining it for her. The hit song, Hit 'em Up Style, yeah, it's fun, it's groovy. I can see where it was a big hit. It could come on one of my playlists and I would listen to it and not move through it. from there, the album, just kind of like the two of you have described, has no coherence. It doesn't have any real flow or reason. Till I'm Gone, I found the beat is just too heavy for a slow song. And at first I thought it was a cover of Hello by Lionel Richie. Till I'm Gone sounds just like Hello. And then I realized, oh, this isn't a cover of Hello. You Must Be Crazy. You did, yeah?
I totally thought the same thing.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
Must Be Crazy, the one, it sort of plods along in mediocrity, nothing bad, but nothing that stands out. It just sounds like 1,000 other R&B songs 10,000 times. I mean, wow, no question. She has a powerful voice, but there just doesn't seem to be any kind of creative gas or differential things in the tank. It could be Toni Braxton, TLC, Destiny's Child, kind of anyone there. You Got My Heart, Threw It All Away, It's All Over Now. Most of the ballads in the back half, just to me, blended together. There was absolutely nothing original about them, no surprises. And to me, it's not a big surprise the album didn't take off beyond the single, and that it's a one-hit wonder. I found it interesting in that this album, the music isn't far off to the left or the right style-wise. It's very down the middle. But it really grated on me. Like, it just, maybe because it was so generic. I thought this is the equivalent of white bread with I Can't Believe It's Not Butter on it. And it just, there's really nothing about this that calls me back for another listen. And again, it could just be one of any number of artists. So I'm not really surprised that it didn't go anywhere. And I think it is a bit of a one-hit wonder. Over to you, Alan.
Thanks, guys. Man, it's like we almost compared notes here. Firstly, I am still shocked that you've never heard Hit 'Em Up Style, because it was everywhere in 2001.
I don't know, because I was in Calgary too.
Apparently not.
But he was
Apparently
here.
not Thailand.
Yeah.
He was here. Well, depends on the radio station.
Oh,
It seems
you're
almost
listening to.
impossible.
But anyway, yeah, as I mentioned, this is my selection in case our listeners have missed that part. And in the selection episode, I did mention that Hit 'Em Up Style is one of my favorite songs from 2001, and it always, without fail, goes on my DJ set lists if ever I'm DJing a party or whatever, because it gets people dancing, either because of the nostalgic value or because generally it's just kind of a fun song. But here's my observation about the rest of the album, and it's going to sound kind of cookie cutter with what you guys all said. It's a very standard R&B affair from an era where artists like Maya and Destiny's Child and Christina Milian and Ashanti and Aaliyah and Jennifer Lopez and Janet Jackson were all dominating the charts. And I think Blu Cantrell kind of fits right in with those names, but because Hit 'Em Up Style sounds so different from the rest of the tracks on the album, I kind of lean towards this being a double-edged sword, right? Because that song is so different, it rose to the top of the charts. But because it's so different, fans were probably left disappointed if that's what they were hoping to get out of the rest of the album, because that was pretty much it. Like, everything else kind of just sounds like a standard R&B tune. And this is something I've kind of noticed a little bit of a pattern with the last 3 months of exploring. I cannot talk today. The last 3 months that we've explored One Hit Wonders, I've kind of noticed this pattern where, for example, Take On Me was the only song from a-ha that sounds like that. And You Get What You Give was the only song on the new Radicals album that sounds like that. And these are big hits because they sounded so unique and so fresh. And I think, like, if you're an artist and you take a gamble on a fresh sort of novel approach to a song or songwriting, and then you score a big hit, you may never be able to escape that gravitational pull unless you're willing to do it again sonically and kind of like fall in line with whatever the people were vibing to. But what do I know? I'm just another idiot on the internet. But anyway, back to Blu. As I said earlier, it's kind of a standard R&B album. I think the bulk of the songs on So Blu are, mid-tempo ballads with soulful and earnest singing and decent production. Like, sonically, it sounds pretty much like what you'd expect an album to sound like from the early 2000s. It's not particularly timeless. And for my part, this isn't a judgment call. Every era has its sound. Scott, Gregory, you mentioned you're not really down with that sound. I don't care one way or the other. I find it somewhat nostalgic myself. it just this album sonically, it sounds like it's tucked away in those glorious early George W. days. Beyond Hit 'Em Up style, there were a few songs that I found myself kind of bopping along to. The song Swinging, for example, was a fun sort of upbeat song, and it kind of felt like it was cut from the same cloth as Hit 'Em Up style. And I think that's because both songs were actually written and produced by the same guy, a dude named Dallas Austin. And I really kind of wish he had been invited to collaborate on more of the tracks on the album, because those quirky, almost like retro inspired songs have a distinctive element that separates them a little bit from an otherwise pretty vanilla sounding album. The song All You Had to Say was another kind of fun track with some jazzy roots. Blu's vocals are on full display with this tune. She does a lot of the vocal runs, as we've talked about. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, lyrically, the contents of this album are also fairly one-dimensional, if I'm being honest. Most of the songs are either about heartbreak or cheating, or heartbreak due to cheating, relationships, or yearning for relationships. I don't know, man. I mean, maybe she was going through something when she wrote this. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this album. Let's throw it over to Scott Gregory once again for scores, final thoughts.
Yeah, so 2001 had several other standout tracks, and so I would suggest for your dance floor bopper, you could replace it with 2001's Lap Dance by Nerd. That will also bring people out.
Pharrell Williams. Untouchable.
Or Alicia Keys' Fallen also came out in 2001. And I think that's who Blu Cantrell could have been, with a little shift in production and song choice and that. And it's a real shame, because I do think she's just straight up a one-hit wonder. Nothing else ever really came to the same level of success. She never really found a voice, it feels like, that would have carried her forward. I'm glad that she's found success in the industry in other ways. But yeah, this is definitely a one-hit wonder in my eyes. Recommend, I can only give it a 2. There's just nothing really here beyond the single to hear, right? It's, as you said, it's different from everything else on the album. And so once you've heard the single, I think you've pretty much gotten everything of value you could out of that. So overall, I'm going to give it a 2 as well.
And what would you score the single out of 5?
Probably a 4 out of 5. I think, as you said before, the only reason I don't really like this, and Darren alluded to it a bit, is just it was so saturated, this sound, by that point. It was the same as everything else in the category, and yeah, this stood out. And so the single itself, great, 4 out of 5. It's just weighed down by an otherwise lackluster album and follow-up. So yeah. What about you, Darren?
Yeah, I'm up here next. Yeah. I mean, one thing to remember, she had 2 Grammy nominations for Hit 'Em Up and The Breathe. Those 2 songs were nominated for Grammy Awards. So personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the Grammy Awards. I think they're garbage. But hey, it says something, and I'm glad musicians are rewarded. But she did not win. But yeah, I have the exact same scores as you. I think overall, it's just a 2, and recommend. Yeah, it's 2 again for that song. And I do love that song. I'm with Alan, man. That's always on my 90s playlist. Love it, man. So much fun. Yeah, I also think it goes well with 7 Acres, Jack Hayes, Cannabis. Had one just walking through a nice trail here in Kimberley, BC, and it made the experience better as I was listening to the album one more time. But anyway, I'll kick it over to Scott Coates now. What do you think, buddy?
Thanks. And I'm going to come along as overly harsh, but it just, again, I keep going back to Wonder Bread with I Can't Believe It's Not Butter on it. And I'm going to give the album a 1 and recommend a 1, because there's just no reason to go there. And it's not bad. It's just nothing to me. And Alan's rating of the single, I'll give it a 3.5. I think it's fun. It somehow doesn't wow me, but yeah, that's about it. Just real middle of the road. Like, I don't know why. It just did not jive with me, man. And over to you, Alan.
Fair enough. Thanks, guys. I am going to be a little more charitable, I think, with my scoring. Blu Cantrell is a really good singer. I think it's probably a bit of a shame that she didn't have more success in the music industry, because she's definitely got the vocal chops, right? Maybe it just wasn't enough to help her stand out in an already saturated R&B market. Hit 'em Up style just sounds so different. And I think if maybe she'd lean into that a little bit more in subsequent releases or subsequent singles or albums or whatever, she might have had more success. But I also think she may have been a victim of timing, because her second album, or her second single off of this album, called I'll Find a Way, was released on September 11th, 2001. And people were kind of busy that day.
Bad luck for her.
You know, that might have screwed her over. I don't know. Just saying. Bad luck for her, right? Who knows what could have happened? You know, and just like we discovered with Aha, the term one-hit wonder is not always so clearly defined. Because while Blu didn't really have a lot of success beyond that one hit in the North American market, apparently her second album was far more successful in Europe and Australia, and apparently she still even performs there from time to time. So I don't know. Look, R&B really isn't my jam. It doesn't really do much for me personally, aside from the odd song here or there that I like to listen to, mostly for the vocal abilities of the musicians. But it's not what I, put on in my downtime. And I think that might be why I had such a difficult time listening to this full album from front to back in one sitting. There's nothing wrong with it inherently. It just kind of sounded the same to me after a while. So anyway, I'm done with rambling. On to the scores. Hit 'em Up style, as I mentioned, that's a certified banger. That's getting a 5 out of 5 for me. There's no question. Overall, the rest of the album, So Blu, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's a middle of the road R&B, album. Nothing special. I'm not going to go back to it, but there's nothing inherently wrong with it. Recommend, however, I am giving it a 4 out of 5, and I have been recommending this album to people I know who do like jazz or R&B. Those genres don't necessarily spark joy for me, but I do believe this album will probably land for people who like that kind of thing. So if that is you, fair listener, then maybe check it out, or maybe don't. But I hope you followed along with us anyway. And that is it for the Sonic Collective for the month of July 2023. Up next, it is August, and Scott Gregory is going to cap off a round of one-hit wonder exploration.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, man, you sound more high than I usually do, Alan. What's
Yeah, no doubt.
Me?
So
I'm stone sober. I am drinking
just
port,
kidding.
though.
We're just kidding.
Stone and sober. Yeah. So we'll be going back to 1996. I think I'm going to make it hard on you guys and have you guessing what the definition of what hit wonder should be again. It will be Bringing Down the Horse by the Wallflowers, featuring the single One Headlight.
Nice.
You son of a bitch. I'm in.
Oh, yeah. That's a good. I like that song.
That's
I
Dylan's
always
son,
like that
right?
song.
That's a good song, for sure.
Yeah.
And Rami Jaffe from the Foo Fighters was keyboards on that album too.
Oh, really?
I did not know.
Wow, already. Hey, save the factoids, guys. We're going to
I know,
blow
right?
our episode info in one go.
Lock it down.
Wasn't there another song on that album that hit the radio? I could have sworn.
Yeah.
Yes,
There's
there
probably
is.
about
There
4
is a
that
slow
hit the
song.
radio.
Yeah, I'm not doing it
1,
justice.
2, 3.
Yeah, no, I perfectly got it, Scott.
6th Avenue Heartache, right?
There
Is
you
that
go.
it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's also on that
Sixth
album as well, too.
Yeah, I was almost there.
Yeah.
You were close,
Yeah.
man. I was like,
I said this is going to be a difficult one for you.
I'm looking forward to that. Cool.
Yeah, never
All right,
listened
well,
to it.
it's one I really don't know, so I'm super excited. Good pick.
Cool.
Nice pick.
Yeah, well, all you out there in Sonic Collective land, please tune in for that. Scott's probably going to drop his sort of album preamble to set that up for you in the next few days, so keep checking back wherever you are listening to podcasts. And until then, you can find us on all the usual social medias and thesonic.collective.com. And that is it for us for this month. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for joining us on the Sonic Collective. where we've explored the music, the history, and the impact of some of the greatest albums of all time. We hope you've enjoyed our discussions and gained new insights and appreciation for the music you and we love. Join us next month for another exciting album, and until then, keep listening to great music.